Welcome to a mini-sode of the Normal podcast. Bite-sized dives into the paranormal to keep your curiosity fed. Whether it's a strange theory, a tech breakdown, or a quick story from the field, you never know what might pop up. Let's get into it.
Louisiana is famous for spectral lore, but its ghost stories rest on two very different 19th century mindsets. If you caught our recent deep dive from raps to REM pods, you heard how early table knocks in New York morphed into today's gadget-driven hunts. Tonight, we fill in what was happening downriver while the Fox sisters rapped up north. New Orleans Free Creole elites were hosting scholarly séances, treating the dead like correspondents in a bilingual salon. 120 river miles upstream at the Myrtles plantation, Mary Cobb Sterling was turning carpentry and paint buckets into a ghost defense system. Upside-down keyholes, blue trim, lead-rich windows etched with crosses, and marble cherubs as stone sentries. The thread that ties them? Both communities believe spirits were present and active. One opened the door to talk, the other re-engineered the door to keep them guessing. Tonight, we explore that continuum, then face the mansion's most stubborn legend, the hallway mirror said to trap Chloe and the Woodruff children. Between 1858 and 1877, Cercle Harmonique met weekly in New Orleans' French Quarter. Led by Henry Louis Ray, a Civil War veteran, Creole of color, and a civil rights activist, the Circle recorded every séance in elegant French longhand. Spirits of Toussaint L'Ouverture, Lafayette, and yes, even Napoleon, allegedly dictated political manifestos supporting universal suffrage and racial equality. So picture the scene. Lace-draped parlor, mahogany table, Catholic prayer candles mingling with West African ancestral invocations. Table rapping wasn't carnival, it was parliament for the beyond. In Ray's minutes circulated among free people of color newspapers, seance transcripts became op-eds. So why this matters to the Myrtles? The same Mississippi River that carried those cotton profits past St. Francisville also buried ideas. News of spirit communication and its social clout drifted upriver. But while New Orleans urban intellectuals saw seances as progressive dialogue, plantation gentry met the same supernatural current with anxiety. Their answer was not conversation, it was architecture. So while Ray's circle was opening portals with questions, Mary Cobb Sterling was busy rehinging literal portals to keep those questions from walking into her children's bedrooms. My friends, I'm an engineer. I'm also a paranormal investigator. And when the two meet, we get what I call a little bit of mad lab science. So we're going to take a quick little deep dive into some of the architecture and apparition nuances of the Myrtles plantation. Let's talk first about those famous upside down keyholes. Is this really fluid dynamics or more folklore? If you stroll the Myrtles central hallway, you'll spot the keyholes mounted barrel up. Legend says that a drifting soul tries to slip in, becomes disoriented, and wanders off. Physics offers a companion story. When you flip a Mortise lock, the slot in it raises roughly 25 millimeters, which seems like such a nominal thing, but that raise is just enough to bring it further up into what we call the warmer air layer, which is created by the stack effect. I'm not going to bore you with the physics of it, but you may recall Bernoulli's formula or Bernoulli's principle. And what that says is it predicts, because of that raise into the warmer air layer, that sharper pressure pulses will happen, especially when interior doors are closed or the weather shifts slightly outside. So as an interior door closes or the pressure changes outside the house, these will be tiny gusts or literally drafts, and they hiss as they pass through the slot, or they even rattle the door plate. And that could be a metallic, like tink tink sound. It also can account for ghost footstep sounds that we may hear, or spiritually hissing or whispers on EVP recorders. But it doesn't just stop with the doors. If you step onto the gallery, on the soffit glows a beautiful chalky blue-green. Now, Gullah lore says that spirits can't cross water. So what do? Well, of course, you paint the porch the color of a lagoon. Entomology, though, adds another layer to the story. Early paint blue was milk paint pigmented with indigo and fortified with lye. But lye just happens to be a natural insect repellent. In addition to that, the very specific color paint blue that was used has a wavelength reflectivity of about 500 nanometers. Why is that important? Well, modern lab work actually showed us that reflective wavelengths between 490 and 525 nanometers, which the paint blue falls directly in the middle of, triggers oxidative stress in many insects. So they avoid landing there. So fewer mud daubers, fewer wasps means fewer darting shadows to light up your IR camera. Let's talk about the beautiful French doors. Every French door pane bears a Gothic cross, but the bigger story is actually inside the glass. Mid 1800s stained glass routinely carried about 20 to 30% lead oxide and was poured up to 5 millimeters thick. That is double a modern window pane. That extra mass damps low frequency vibration, so you slam a door and the pane shudders less. However, current cheap EMF readers, those are the ones that use ferrite coils and they look like K2, but they're actually like a cheaper Amazon knockoff, or you get them from other places. They pick up that very low vibration motion as magnetic flux. So unfortunately, the windows actually can cause a fake EMF readings in the area. And we wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't talk about those beautiful cherubs. Now there are cherubs around the finales of the lights in rooms, one protecting every corner. And of course, we have cherub statues on either side of the doors. Now marble is quite heavy. It's about 2.7 grams per centimeter cubed. So these statues were rating in at about 70 kilograms per cherub. And when you bolt them beside a hollow cypress door, it effectively doubles the mass of the frame. That basically drops the resonant frequency, and that's the hertz frequency, the sound resonance from the door, from 80 hertz, which is equivalent to about an audible foot thump, to around 55 hertz. And again, that doesn't seem like a horrible drop, 80 to 55, but that's now enough that you more feel it than hear it. So while that resonance means you're no longer hearing the noise, what it does mean is your digital recorders, that's actually the sweet spot for it to hear a growl or a moan or another noise. So over time, we've done more structural vibration studies, and we now understand that heavy stone artifacts actually amplify that sub-bass rumble through wooden floors. So if you're in an area that have wooden floors and heavy stone objects, if you're recording things on your digital recorders that sound like growls, it may actually be just the lower resonance from the door. Altogether, Mary Sterling's spirit proofing reads like 19th century environmental engineering, really. You manipulate airflow, light spectra, mass loading, and vibration, so anything uncanny or otherworldly would have to fight the house itself literally before it would even be able to reach the family. Let's now talk about the mirror mystery. I wondered during the Myrtles, what could cause this mirror to have such amazing artifacts to it? Was it chemistry or was it Chloe? So the Myrtles hallway mirror isn't just another antique. It's actually the stage for Louisiana's most stubborn haunting. Ghosts report child-sized handprints blooming across its surface, faint faces peering from the glass, and even shadowy shapes that refuse to wipe away. And who is this Chloe that we speak of? Plantation legend says that Chloe was an enslaved house servant owned by Judge Clark Woodruff. In one telling, she was eavesdropping outside the study for gossip, as she was known to do, but this time she was caught. She had an ear cut off as punishment, and it ended up resulting in her wearing this green turban to hide the evidence of her having eavesdropped. She was removed from the house and sent to the outside kitchen, which is not a place you would want to be, especially having spent years inside the house with close proximity to the family and all the comforts that the home would offer you. So, seeking revenge or redemption, she baked a birthday cake laced with crushed oleander So the family would fall mildly ill and would become depending on her for nursing back to health, which would ultimately win her favor, and she would be welcomed back into the house, of course. Well, that dose proved fatal, and Sarah Woodruff, who was Judge Clark Woodruff's wife, and two of their children died. Fellow enslaved people, fearing the judge's wrath, hanged Chloe from a nearby tree and then threw her body into the Mississippi. At the time, Southern custom held that every reflective service must be draped after a death, so departing spirits wouldn't be trapped. Servants supposedly missed one mirror, that famed mirror in the hallway, and ever since, handprints and sorrowful faces appeared in the glass. Proof, tour guides say, that Sarah's children and Chloe still linger. But I wonder, what does the chemistry say? Well, 19th century mirrors were silvered by chemical reduction of silver nitrate onto glass. Now, silver is gorgeous, but so fragile. And there are some facts that make this perfect canvas for actually creating these enduring ghostly marks. First of all, fingerprints corrode silver. Our skin oils, the salts, and even the amino acids etch the metal within hours, leaving ridge patterns that deepen as the silver tarnishes over time. Humidity further reveals that etch. And of course, Louisiana, there's definitely some humidity. So when that Gulf Coast moisture condenses on the cool glass, water droplets form first on the damaged silver, causing latent prints to bloom into view, often at night when humidity peaks. And then cleaning chemicals actually worsen it. Ammonia-based glass cleaners actually seep through pinholes of the glass into the backing paint, which accelerates the tarnish into even darker and more dramatic shapes. So even if the mirror has been resilvered, which we know this mirror has been multiple times, if it uses the original glass, it actually preserves microscopic pits. So that new silver deposited over old etchings actually inherits the same pattern, making it seem as though the handprints return no matter how often the mirror is restored. So chemistry provides a very mundane but compelling explanation. Yet Chloe's story endures because it humanizes the theme. It turns that corrosion into tragedy and that science into folklore. So from upside down locks to silver nitrate fingerprints, the Myrtles shows how folklore and physics intertwine. It also bridges the timeline we sketched in from raps to brim pods. The same century that embraced calling knocks from beyond was busy armoring its door and mirrors against them. Spirit-proofing tactics altered airflow, light spectra, and acoustic resonance long before modern ghost hunters arrived with our gadgets. Whether the hallway mirror reflects Chloe's sorrow or Silver's chemistry, the plantation reminds us that every haunting sits at a crossroads of culture, physics, and very human fear. Our next investigation, we're going to jump forward again, this time to the Collingwood Arts Center in Toledo, Ohio. So stay tuned for how the tech stacks up against 150-year-old lore. Until then, keep your sensors running and maybe check which way your keyholes face.